sounds good.
Okay. Well, you're Canadian by birth. Have you ever pondered how your life and career may have panned out had you stayed in Canada?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, and I'm not sure what would have happened. Maybe I would have ended up being a hockey player, or I probably would have still played music for sure. But I don't know. It's an interesting question, like because I think we're all products of our environment, and
Yeah.
I grew up in Southern California, and it really affected me in certain ways.
So we might
So
we might still be speaking to Steve Poltz, musician from Canada, but maybe not.
exactly,
Mm.
but who knows what I'd be doing. I think a lot of my friends that are in Canada, they get government grants to make music because the Canadian government will give money to musicians to spread the Canadian brand and go out there, and they'll help pay for records and pay for tour support and different things like that. I don't know if the Australian government does that. I think they probably do. But Canada, they're pretty big on that. They'll give money to musicians, government grants. But that would never happen here in America. Like, that just doesn't happen. So, like a lot of my friends that are in Canada, they get grants and they'll tour Australia or tour other areas. But in the United States, you kind of got to sink or swim on your own.
Yeah. There's been a bit of that over here through the years. So it depends on who's in power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, tell us about the formation of the Rugburns. Did you have goals for that band when you set out?
Well, we started as a duo, and we went to a Catholic university, and so we played in the folk mass at church. That was kind of how we started. Just that's how I met the guy that I started the band with, and we were just this duo, and then we would play at nights around town and on campus in college, and then we just kept doing it even after we graduated and had jobs, and then we turned into a full band and got a bass player and a drummer and started touring.
So, was there any particular catalyst that steered you in the direction of going off to pursue the solo thing?
Yeah, I toured so long in a band, and it's really hard to keep a band together because you got all these band decisions, and you gotta if you don't break big after a while, it can be you just keep going, and you've all got to be on the same page. And I remember I went to see Loudon Wainwright the Third, and he was playing at a place in Los Angeles in Santa Monica. It's called McCabe's Guitar Shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I saw him, and I watched him in concert, and I remember thinking, wow, that's my future. I can do what he's doing and grow old doing it. And it really affected me. And I got to tell him that years later. I opened a show for him, like last year, I think it was. And I told him about how I saw him, and it kind of affected me.
You did something very brave in those early days by putting out an album of, I guess you'd call them little ditties that were initially meant for answering machine messages. Tell us about the brainstorm of putting that out there.
Well, I would just make up a message every day on my answering machine from a hotel room, and this is back when we had answering machines at our houses and before cellular phones. And so I would call from when I was on the road. I would call in from a hotel and hold the phone between my legs and use that as the microphone. And I would have to type in a certain code to get my machine to beep, so I could hear my messages from home, and then to change the outgoing message. And so I would make up a song every day, and then they would just be forgotten because I wouldn't record them or anything. But unbeknownst to me, a friend of mine was taping them. He would call up my house every day, and if I had changed the message, which I usually had, he would tape it, and then he had like 56 different songs and 7 bonus tracks, and we put it out on a CD, and each song was 45 seconds. So it was like we had this whole album that I didn't even know I had. It was a really cool idea.
I don't know if you can believe everything you read, but I've actually read that that's one of Neil Young's favourite albums. Do you know that to be true?
Well, it's so funny that people say that. I don't know that it's one of his favorite records. It was a record that he liked. I got the guy that did my album artwork, and the guy that was a photographer was Henry Diltz, who's done like Saturate Before Using by Jackson Browne and Crosby, Stills and Nash, the record where they're sitting on that sofa. And he and Gary Burden, not the singer Gary Burden, but Gary Burden, who's done every album cover for Neil Young. He's done every single cover. He did a record of mine called One Left Shoe, and then Neil Young was his best man at his wedding. And so he would always hang out with Neil because they're really good friends. And Gary Burden loved my record Answering Machine, and then Neil came over one night, and they were getting stoned, and then he was just said to Neil, listen to a song off of this, and Neil made him play the whole thing. So he listened to all 56 songs, and then he said Neil was loving it and said, I have to have this. I love this record, and kept it and stole it from him.
It's so cool. It's obviously that you love being up on stage. The enjoyment there is pretty plain to see watching you. But what about the touring lifestyle that goes with it? Do you? I've heard a lot of artists say they don't get paid to play; they get paid to get there. Does that apply to you, or you happy? Are you a happy traveller?
Well, like I'm about to leave on tour in the morning, and I've had about 2 weeks off, so I'm really happy just being at home right now, just hanging out and not being on the road. And so I sort of get filled with a sense of dread the night before tour, and then once I play the first show, I know it always happens. I just go, oh yeah, this is what I meant to do. But I have to play the first show of the tour to have that. So usually I'm filled with a weird trepidation the night before I leave on tour, and I start questioning why I'm even doing this, because it is a lot of hassle to get there.
Yeah.
And it's just like the part of packing and then getting to the airport and hopping on a plane and then renting a car, figuring out where you're staying that night, getting to the hotel. But it's all becomes automatic pilot to me once the wheels are set in motion. It's just before they happen the night before when it feels kind of strange.
Yeah. The performance is the easy part.
Yeah, the performance is fun. And it's almost like it's a drug for me, because when I'm playing, I think, well, you know, the body makes its own chemicals, and it takes a lot of energy to get up there and kind of sing songs and make it up as you go the way that I do it. And so I get a lot of energy release from doing that, like an adrenaline rush, I guess. And so I sort of get used to the adrenaline rush. And the hard part is after the show, kind of trying to fall asleep, because I'm like a rocket ship. I'm stage, I'm blasting off, and I expend a lot of energy, and then it's hard to kind of shut my mind down. And then I eventually hit into a groove on the tour, and it's really cool because, like, tomorrow will be my first show, and my voice feels really weak right now. Like, it doesn't have the same strength it will have in a couple days. And when on tour, if I'm doing like 30 shows in a row, and sometimes I'll do 30 shows without a day off, or maybe I'll do 20 and then have one day off and then another 10, and my voice really gets it gets worn in like an old glove.
Yeah.
Like a baseball glove. And it gets stronger as I go on, and my guitar playing gets better. Like, tomorrow's the first show of the tour is always I think it's a little rough. Like, my voice sounds kind of wonky, and I'll miss some notes on the guitar, because I'll have played on my off days, but I'm not really working on, I'm in show shape. Show shape's different, where you got one chance to do a song, you're going to the next song, to the next song, and to the next song. And so once I hit my groove after a few days on the road, it's amazing because for me, I just hit my stride, and the guitar playing gets better and singing gets better. And I have a lot of times I'll have a long drive, and on that drive I'll learn a new song, which is really fun for me because it makes the drive go fast. Like the other day I learned how to play "It's Not Dark Yet" by Bob Dylan off of the record "Time Out of Mind."
Yeah.
And I loved the lyric of that and the melody, and so it was neat because I don't mind listening to a song 100 times in a row if I'm learning it. Like it'll be on repeat all day long from my drive, and that's all I'll listen to. And then by the time I get there, I've kind of gotten inside the song and try to add something to it.
You are
do it.
You're a very giving stage performer. As you say, you do give out a lot of energy there, but continuing on with the show while you're having a stroke, that is going above and beyond the call of duty. Tell us about that.
Well, knowing what I know now, I would have stopped, but I didn't know what was happening. But I knew that I'd lost my vision, and so in my mind, I was having a conversation with myself, just thinking, man, what's going on here? And I wonder, does this happen to everybody? And maybe my vision will come back. I don't know why my vision is gone. And then I was kind of really out of it, so I kept repeating the line to a song over and over. But the audience said I was kidding, and nothing was really working in my brain. It was like everything was on shutdown, and so I had to go to the hospital. So, but I didn't really want to upset the audience, so I was trying to weather through the storm. Continue on, and I've done it before. Like I've played with a broken nose. I played with a split head open. I think I've just always had crazy wherewithal that the show must go on. Played sick. I played so many shows sick where it takes a lot for me to cancel a show.
Yeah. Back in the day, your association with Jill gave you a glimpse of the more commercially successful side of the music business. What did you take out of that experience?
I kind of took out of that I was glad that I'm not a pop star.
Yeah.
And that I've never become really famous, and I really appreciated being around it, but I saw how fleeting it can be too, and how you can peak and then that's it. But if you have a hit, it does put butts in seats, and it gets you a lot more money, but it also comes with a price of maybe that's as big as you'll ever get. But then you can be a heritage act too, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was neat because I got to live the really good life and be on a private plane and tour buses. But what I learned at the end of the day was it's all about the music. And as long as I'm happy playing music, it doesn't really matter how I get there, because I get to play the music. And if I'm in control and I get to play whatever I want, that's the most freedom in the world. And there's nothing better than freedom. And so there are trappings that I miss of that, like a really nice tour bus and, like I said, a private plane. But at the end of the day, I get to play music still, and I'm still getting to the shows, and I'm doing it the exact way that I want to do it.
It did give you, though, your greatest success as a songwriter, even though it wasn't your own recording. Have you ever wanted to be one of those songwriter for hire type guys, churning out songs for others, or would you miss the performance side of things too much?
For me, I've always done what I just wanted to do, and so that's been the live performance. And people have said, man, you had a hit song there. You should write more songs for people and try to do that. And I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be great to do it all. But what I've learned, especially after living in Nashville, is there are people that just mine for gold, and go after the hits, and they get together every day, and that's what they do, and they get really good at it, and they work that like a muscle, and they have publishers, and that's where they put all their energy into. But it's hard enough to do just one thing good. So for them to do that, then they're not really able to go out and tour and put together a live show. And a lot of them don't want to, and they look at the life I have as, well, to have to go out there and all the travel, which I understand. But I get such a joy from playing live that I would miss it if all I did was sit in a room and write songs with people that I never really got to play out and road test. I think I've always been into the performance of it, and I've always had a bit of wanderlust. So ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by the globe and the world and seeing new places. And so I'm pretty lucky that I get to do this, and I still get excited. Like, I'm excited for this show coming up next week. Like, I'll be at a place I've never played before. And I love that.
Now, you've done the independent thing for pretty much most of your career, but you did briefly have some major label time back with Mercury Records. What impression did that leave on you?
That was really cool because I was signed by this guy, Danny Goldberg, and he ran Mercury Records, and he was huge and had worked with everybody. And so I got kind of a brief moment in the sun, phone and Billboard magazine, and really expensive dinners and bottles of wine and menus with my name on it, and a whole radio department, and a special on VH1 that they did of me, and it was really cool. And for whatever reason, my record didn't break. Maybe it wasn't a good enough record, or maybe it wasn't my time, because a lot of everything that happens is timing. So it was a really fun experience, and I'm glad I got to have it and make a high-budget video, and I got to get a taste of it. And I wish that the record would have done better, but it didn't. And but I still have fond memories of it all. You know, they really worked it. I can say that. They definitely gave it an effort, and I had a big team around me. But once they forget about you, you're forgotten about.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do well, then you're dropped. But you know what? It's all part of the game, and it's like you can either spend your life being bitter, or you can just be grateful that you even had an opportunity, and just say, hey, maybe it wasn't my time. I think, like, whenever there's failure, you got to kind of look and say, what was my part in that failure? Because it's really easy to just be like a bitter musician and go, I got screwed over by the label.
Yeah.
They didn't do this or whatever. But, you know, it's a business. And so whenever you have business and art intersecting, you're going to have troubles in some way, because business and art don't make good bedfellows. Because you have an artist, and artists are dreamers, and, you know, not all of them, but usually an artist is a bit of a dreamer and a creative type. And then you have a business person saying, how can we put this in a bottle, package it, and sell it? And that can be abhorrent to an artist. I mean, it's offensive a lot of times when you think that there's a board of directors, or there's all these people deciding what your art needs to look like and how it needs to sound, and testing it on focus groups. You know, I wouldn't want all that pressure, but I was really glad that I got to do it for one record.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after that, put out Answering Machine. And so it's like my career's been pretty long, and I'm really glad that part of my career I got to experience that, and I got to experience being on the road with somebody who had such a major hit with the song I was involved in, and I got to be in her band. So I've been really lucky that I've gotten a taste of it in all these different directions, and then putting out my own records, and now living in Nashville, and I've done co-writes with people, and I'm sure I'll do more co-writes, and maybe somebody will get a hit with one. I really feel like as long as you keep showing up, if you really work at it, good things are going to eventually happen just due to the law of averages. If you're pretty good at what you do, eventually something good's going to happen. Like I had a song placed in a commercial for Jeep once that paid all this money, and I didn't go out and look for it. It's just some guy heard the song, and it was because I kept showing up and playing. Mm-hmm. And so, like, my whole career has been built on the fact that I keep saying yes and keep doing gigs. And it's not because I have some crazy work ethic, which I do, but more than that, it's that I enjoy the work. Because if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have a good work ethic. And so, like, a lot of times people might think they're lazy, but what it really is, they just haven't found their passion. And a lot of times you go through your life and you never do find that passion. There's heaps of people I know that just had a certain job and that was what they did, and they weren't happy with the job, and then they died. Like, my dad hated his job. He hated it. And when he retired, that's when he got happy. And he used to always tell me, don't ever do a job you don't settle. That's what he always said. And I was lucky enough that I followed music, and actually it worked out it kind of worked out. Depends on what you use as a measuring stick.
Exactly.
But, like, we all have different measuring sticks, and what is success anyways? Everything's so relative. Success to me is if you find somebody who's doing what they're meant to do, and the time goes so fast, and they're compensated for that and able to make a living in life. That's success.
That's right. Being happy in what you do. That's the measurement to use.
Yeah, and it's hard to find that, and I'd say most people never find that. And I sort of stumbled into it, through sheer tenacity and luck and a lot of different factors. But I have a lot of friends that quit playing music because it just didn't happen for them. And I think, like, for it to happen for people to establish a career, especially today, when you have so many people that are able to put music up online, and there's no gatekeepers now deeming who's worthy. No one to say, hey, I'll give you a record deal. Because in the days I was doing it, there were gatekeepers that held like this velvet rope and allowed you to come in or not. You could still be an independent artist, but it was it was harder. And nowadays, all you need is a phone, and you can upload something instantly to YouTube or a computer, and you can record a really lo-fi recording of something, and maybe it's going to click with somebody. But you've got to just keep doing it, and then hopefully develop a show. And then also, there's that X factor. Does this person have charisma to make people want to go? It's that X factor of charisma. Like, what makes people go, we've got to go see this girl play or this guy play? Oh, just trust me, like you tell your friends. I've done it so many times where I've been excited about somebody, like Ricky Lee Jones. Back in the day, I'd tell a friend, you have to see her. Just come with me. I'll buy the tickets. And then either they were into it or they weren't. But for me, like, I've been a fan my whole life of her music. Joni Mitchell, Phoebe Snow, like all these different people, these singers. And it's crazy because it's a mystery of because music is something, you can't really bottle it. You can hear it and you can't touch it, but it's something you hear, and if it affects you, like, I just paid $1,500 for 2 tickets to see Bruce Springsteen on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
Now, for somebody else, that's like a crazy person would do that, but for me, that was face value, and I got a text, and I had a little bit of time to pick out the tickets. I was lucky enough, and I flew out there to New York, and was able to go see Bruce Springsteen, and the tickets were $750 each, and it was awesome. It was inspiring. It was a booster shot at my ass because I saw somebody who's doing what I'm doing, up on stage solo with the guitar telling stories and holding a crowd, and I was just like, yeah, like it was like going to a class in college and watching somebody who's really good at their craft. And when I left, I was really inspired that I was on the right track.
Storytelling is so much a part of what you do. Obviously, apart from a good story, what to you is the key element of good storytelling in song?
Well, a story in between the song is sometimes amazing because you can set up a song in a way that people don't even know the song's being set up. And so you can have a story that leads into a story in a song. But my mom always told me to think of who was there, what happened, and how did it make you feel. And so if you can sort of naturally bring those elements into a story or a song, I think the kicker is a lot of times people forget to say, how did it make you feel? Because you can tell a story, but when you add this other element in of how you felt, like how you were brokenhearted about something, that's when the audience can really empathize with you and just say, wow, that hit me right in the heart. And the same with the story too.
Reading other interviews with you and seeing you on stage, you seem to have a never-ending list of fascinating road stories. Any thoughts of ever putting them into a book form?
Yeah, I was offered a book deal and I'm supposed to be working on it. And I need to do that. And I know that I will. I felt like I wanted to live a little bit more. But I need to start putting it together because there's so many good stories and I've forgotten a lot of them. And people will sometimes remind me of them because there's always something that happens on the road and then I'll turn it into a humorous story. Like, I won't practice it. It's really weird, but I know something happened. Like, I'm on the road and I went into a Starbucks and there was some weird interaction with somebody. And I can make that into comedy. And I know it's going to be funny, and I know it's going to make for a good story. And in my mind, I'll say, well, I got to remember to talk about that tonight. But that's about as far as it goes. I sort of work it out a little bit. But then once I start doing it on stage, I'll stumble into, like my dad always said, like, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. You know, then I'll stagger into some way I can tell a lie or an exaggeration in the story to make it even better. So there's a punchline. But I don't really write them out beforehand. I sort of like the idea of being surprised along with the audience. And then I'll think afterwards. And then I might tell that story again on that tour a couple more nights in a row. And then it gets better because I'll see what worked. And then I grow tired of that story and something else will happen.
You've got a fantastic connection with Australia. You've been here so many times. We pretty much consider you an honorary Australian anyway. Did you feel that connection right from the very beginning, your first visit here?
I did, right away. I was there with Jewel, and my first show was at the Palais Theatre. How good is that?
Yeah,
it was like all downhill from there. And so, yeah, I couldn't believe it. That was my first show. We got to play the Palais, and they instantly adopted me. They were so nice. They were just the best. The crowds. What I like about Australia is it's like the perfect mix of Canada and the USA. Because Canada's good, but they're a little too polite and they get offended more easily. And Australians are way more crass, but they have the more political style of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like I fit in Australia the best because I love people who understand crass humor and laugh and have a good sense of humor, and they really enjoy music, and it's kind of like a weird hybrid, you know. because the people in the U.S., I feel like there's a lot of similarities between the United States and Australia. And it seems like the countries, get along with each other. But I just really like Australia. It's such a beautiful country. Don't they call it the lucky country?
The lucky country, that's it, yep.
Yeah.
Hey, last year you put out a song which I thought was pretty much the song of the year last year. Hey God, I'll Trade You, Donald Trump for Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
Love that song, and I believe it got its origins here in Australia.
I wrote that at Woodford Folk Fest, and this is what I love about songs and how you just stumble into them. And I was about to go on stage, and I was talking to a girl who was at Woodford, and this is so funny because she was over from Ireland, and her name's Sheena Keane. And she said to me, man, I just saw your show earlier, and you would be so good in Ireland. Do you ever play Ireland? I said, I haven't played there in years, but I want to go back. And she said, oh my God, the Irish audiences would eat you up. They'd love you. How about I work on getting you in some festivals? And I said, okay. And she goes, unless, Donald Trump, I think he hadn't been elected yet, or had he? I can't. He had.
He would have, if it was Woodford, yeah, he would have been, yeah.
Yeah, he would have been. Yes,
Yeah.
He had just gotten elected. That's right. And she said, that's if Donald Trump will let you back in the country because you were born in Canada. And I said, oh my God, can you believe this? And Leonard Cohen had just died. And I said, man, I'd trade Donald Trump for Leonard Cohen. And then she said, that sounds like a good song right there. That'd be a good song. I go, I think I'm going to go write it. And I just went and wrote it right before I went on stage in my tent at Woodford. And then I had somebody hold the words, and it got a standing ovation. I did it as my opening song at Woodford. It's so funny because that was like, I couldn't wait to come home and record it. And then I did it in Florida, and somebody flipped me off, and somebody threw something at me. And I forgot how divided we are here. I don't know anybody in Australia who likes Trump. Maybe a couple people. I'm sure there are people who like him, but
be a very, very small minority.
Yeah, same with Canada.
Yeah. So you have had some backlash over that song.
Oh yeah, I've gotten hate mail.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, threats. It's crazy.
Is that something that happens often, though? You do often have your songwriter's radar up looking for song ideas like that?
I just sort of stumble into stuff when the mood strikes me. I don't plan it. The weird thing is that I've never really planned anything. Stuff has always just happened for me, like, because I'm out there playing every night. If you just show up and you're in the mix, things are going to happen. And things will form in front of you without you even knowing. And I think the key is to just be available.
Does songwriting get easier with experience? Is it something that you found's got a little bit easier each year?
No. I feel like it's a mystery. It's the weirdest mystery in the world. I have not figured it out, and I can't. I've given up trying to figure it out. I tried to figure it out for a long time, and now I've just accepted the fact it's like a wild horse, and it's a weird mystery, and I'm never going to figure it out, but I'm going to keep being available to it.
Yeah.
So I can always, I'm going to treat it with respect and awe, and always want to be able to keep doing it, because I look at somebody like Neil Young, who's in his 70s, I think now. Maybe he's not, but it seems like he would be.
Yeah.
And he's still so creative and still so viable and still doing stuff that means something. And he's got the greatest career, and I always want to be available and have respect for that muse. But no, it hasn't gotten easier. I still don't even understand how it works. That's the strange thing about it.
Oh, maybe
Same
it's
with live shows. Like live shows have gotten easier because I've played so many, and the more I play, the more songs I have to do, and the more tricks I get up my sleeve. But I still haven't mastered it, and I never will. And that's what I love about it. Like, I still keep doing it because there's something to learn from it.
And just before I let you go, what else has 2018 got in store for you after you leave us?
Well, I have this new record I made in Nashville. It's my first Nashville record.
Oh, brilliant.
I hope I'm going to have a copy to bring to Australia. And it was really fun to make this record in Nashville. I co-wrote some songs with some friends of mine. And my buddy Will Kimbrough produced it. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited before I go to Australia, I'm doing this cruise ship. I've never played a cruise. I've never been on a cruise ship, and I'm playing on one. And it's called Cayamo, and it's spelled Cayamo, Cayamo. And it's an Americana music cruise ship, and John Prine's playing, and Patty Griffith, and Richard Thompson, and Brandy Carlisle, and a bunch of different people. It sells out every year. I've always wanted to play on this cruise ship. It's really hard to get invited, and I finally did.
Well,
so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, great catching up with you. Thanks so much for your time. You don't need me to tell you how much we loved having you down here. So we're looking forward to the upcoming tour, which would be number 17, 18. How many times has this been now?
I don't know, 19.
Wow. Fantastic.
Maybe. Well, thank you so much.
No, looking forward to seeing you, Steve. Thanks so much for your time. Glad we finally caught up.
Me too. Cheers.
Take care. We'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye.